welcome back to the first episode of Feathers and Field Goals in 2026. I'm your host, Bryce Leslie, and I want to apologize to the listener for taking this long to get back into action. The bowl game was on December 17th, so we all got home, got back into our normal lives, and then the holiday season hit, and I think routine is finally back for us, though. It feels good to be behind a mic again. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, for especially to those who subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you find us. Co-host Dan Steenkammer, I can't believe I can't act like we haven't spoken the new year, but since then, I know you're a subscriber on your end, and I wish you personally Happy New Year. How are you on this fine January Monday morning in 2026?
Bryce, you said it. I feel like I'm back in routine. I was part of it's kind of my fault. I was part of the reason that we weren't able to get back together on the recording saddle, as I was a little under the weather shortly after the new year rang in. So I was knocked out for like a little under a week, and that really I felt like held up our progress to getting back together. But all good now, or at least much better now. And we've got a lot to catch up on, certainly a lot to put a finale on as far as the end of the 2025 football season.
Producer Brody Hamilton, I'll never shy away from an opportunity to shout you out. Thank you for everything you did for us to elevate our first full season covering football here at Feathers and Field Goals. How has 2026 been for you so far?
Well, first of all, it's been my pleasure. I'm very glad to have helped you both to elevate the pod to where when I met you both, I thought it should have been. The audio and video formats, I think, work really well for what we do, and I'm glad that we're doing it. As for the new year, it's been great. The Ravens already won their Super Bowl, getting rid of John Harbaugh. Nothing against the guy. Obviously brought a Super Bowl to Baltimore, but I think it was time, and I'm glad that it's done now. Hope we can hire someone who can elevate the team. But also, I've received in the mail my bespoke, custom-made Ventures Bowl t-shirt. Here we have UD in a crystal bowl of Mardi Gras beads, and then on the back,
that's so cool.
We got the whole design. Of course, not for commercial sale anywhere, because for anyone who wants to stay in good graces with the university, you wouldn't necessarily, but it would be cool if anyone out there is listening to get like maybe licensing or something, so we could make these. Because I think they're cool, and people have been busting down my doors with interest for these. So, something to think about. But yeah, the New Year's been great. Spending time with friends and family. We're all very amped up for what the future of Delaware football will consist of. Also making plans to go to some lacrosse games. We're going to the UMass game. We're going to some home games, depending on weather. So this is going to be a lot of fun for spring, and of course gearing up for next football season, which we're always in a perpetual state of either enjoying the current football season or preparing for the next one. So,
well, I'm excited to eventually get into what we're going to do this winter and spring leading up to it. Brody, you alluded to it. We're going to get into it a little bit. I know a lot of fans loved your pecking order rundown. Maybe we're going to get a little bit of a lacrosse version of that this spring. We're going to get into that. We'll talk about that more. I know it's been a while since this game has happened. It's been a while since we've recorded. To our day of recording today, it's been a month on the date since our last episode released. The bowl game happened a little less than a month ago. I actually had to rewatch it over the weekend and get my brain flowing, because in terms of reporting on our X account or Twitter account, however you still view that app, I've been in off-season mode for quite some time. But let's get back to the 68 Ventures Bowl a little bit. Let's close this 2025 season out. The Fighting Blue Hens brought hardware home with them from Mobile, Alabama, after defeating the Louisiana Raging Cajuns 20-13. Dan, with how many games that came down to the final minute, more like the final play of the 2025 season. I guess it feels right that it had to end this way again on the 13th game to be the decipher between a winning season or a losing season. Talk us through the game and the eventual ending here in Mobile.
Well, it was very appropriate that Delaware's defense was on the field for the closing moment, making a stand. It was the night of the Delaware defense, for Delaware's defense to hold a team in the teens. Now, I know we'll discuss Louisiana quarterback Lunch Winfield, his being banged up. And so he was banged up by Delaware's defense, though, is part of that. So you account for a little bit of that. But in the end, you really account for the fact that the Delaware defense spent a lot of time on the field at times and hung in for the finish at the very end. You think about Delaware's special teams unit and the coverage, a tackle by Matt McKinley-Daniels, making it a long drive for Louisiana to have to make in the very last drive of regulation, as it turned out. So for Delaware's defense to make Louisiana use that much of the field, that much of the clock. Now, Louisiana handled its last drive quite well. That's how you do it. You get some completions, take what's underneath in terms of a prevent defense, and you go from there. And Louisiana did about as well as you can do to then have the defense on its heels and backed up toward the shadow of the goalposts. But it was exactly kind of what we talked about in pregame. I mean, not exactly, I guess, because we were thinking this might be a special teams moment yet again. Is there some kind of kicking involved? We were talking a little bit about that. But it was one of those where every second of the clock is going to matter. And Louisiana, we know, Bryce, you and I discussed this after the fact, very soon after the game ended. And Brody, I know you were thinking the same as we were discussing on the road trip back. The situation was going to be Louisiana is going for two. If Louisiana gets a score, a touchdown in the final drive regulation, you're thinking the Raging Cajuns are definitely going to be going for two for a chance to take the lead, have the go-ahead really as time has expired possibly. So that's one of those where it didn't have to come to that, which is a blessing for Delaware, but Delaware earned it that way. And what a moment. A good chance for Delaware to win a different style of game. It didn't have to be 50, 60 points like the regular season ending. So no doubt about it. It was one for the books. I'm glad that Brody, you helped me get there. And Bryce, you and your dad being there too. Wow. I mean, to see people that we saw pregame and people coming and saying hello and all the interactions we had, ton of positive times meeting people for the first. So it was all very encouraging, and it was very gracious to everybody who came up and said hello, and we wanted to say hi right back. So that's my ramble on recollections at the very end of the game and just thinking about the experience in totality.
Well, Rob Reed, Nate Reed's dad, you talked about the ending being maybe special teams worthy. Down in Mobile is when I learned that when we make these predictions, maybe it affects, the family members of people that are in moments like that. Because Rob told us, like, every time we talked about it, it's going to come down to a Nate Reed kick. It's clogged ears at that point. So we had all three of us had a great conversation with Rob, and it was a blast down there. And the great thing about this, Brody, is I'm pretty proud that all three Feathers and Field Goals members made it down to Mobile for this one. What were your thoughts on the game and overall experience from this? I feel like I can guess you, like myself, will take this era over the FCS playoffs version of the Blue Hens, I guess, full season.
Oh, I mean, without a doubt. I mean, this is the most meaningful win that Delaware's had since at least, or not at least, I'd say pushing up against the 03 national championship. Not that it's more important than that, but it's the most important since then. Because I can't think of any FCS playoff win that wasn't a national title that maybe not on its face was as meaningful, but meant more to the organization and the positive momentum of the ball club, so to speak, as this game here. And I also want to say that during the game, there's just as many, if not a few more, Delaware fans in the audience as there was Louisiana fans, which I thought would not be the case. I thought it would be basically a Louisiana home game because you think about how close Louisiana is to Mobile. Obviously they border each other, but a lot of people from Lafayette have been told, vacation near Mobile or on the Floribama shore. So I thought going in that it would be packed Louisiana with a small Delaware section of the diehards that came down. But How they had it was they had two sections of Delaware and then one section of Delaware band, and then on the opposite side, two sections of Louisiana, and one section of Delaware or of Louisiana band. So in that way, the atmosphere was great. They packed us all together. And for the vast majority of the game, at least in the audience, maybe not on the broadcast necessarily, the energy was entirely in favor of Delaware. Of course, they go out to a 20-3 lead, but throughout that, there were a lot of moments that went Delaware's way. The huge Joe Silver run to get the scoring started, the Nate Evans pick in the end zone, and kind of everything just seemed to be going Delaware's way the whole time. I was like, I can't believe this. Like, I can't believe this is my life. Like, I'm just going around hugging and high-fiving random people, and it was great. It was awesome because we were all there for the same reason, and that's the beautiful thing about college sports. But then, kind of as the game goes, we have the blocked field goal that swung momentum. We didn't have to go field goal there. I don't think we had to go up for the points. We could have punted, played field possession. And then that turns into 7 points. And then in the last couple drives, Delaware can't milk clock the way that they maybe wanted to, and then they give the ball up to Louisiana one more time, and then that's when it starts to get tense in the stadium. It's not tense until then. It's not tense when it's 10-20. It's 13-20, and Louisiana has the ball. And they're taking these under routes or taking these out routes right to the sideline, taking no time off the clock. And that's when it gets stressful. But thankfully, the defense did what they had to do, which is refreshing, honestly, if you're a Delaware fan. I think that was the minimum amount of points allowed all season by the Delaware defense. And you can tell based on the attendance, how the game went, the energy in the stadium, both on the Delaware sideline, but then also in the Delaware hand section, that this game just meant more to Delaware. You look at like Louisiana, who thought they'd be playing in the Sun Belt Championship game when the season started, and now they have to play in the 68 Ventures Bowl, like right down the street from where they live. It's just not as exciting as if you're Delaware and you're coming in with something to prove and something to earn in year one. And that's kind of what the narrative was going in, and I'm glad that that narrative wasn't necessarily challenged. I'm glad that Delaware had the juice coming in because they needed all of it. They were hitting hard, they were flying to the ball. Of course, they banged up Lunch Winfield, who, you'd rather he not get injured just as a student athlete. You don't want to see him go down. But, at the end of the game, he was like hugging his trainer right before the last couple plays. He
that
goes
timeout,
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, he goes up to his trainer and he hugs her, and it's like, oh my God, this guy just wants to be done. And like, I can't blame him. He goes out for the quarterback carry on the second to last play. They probably could have run two more plays, but instead the clock keeps moving and comes down to the last play where the ball gets tipped in the air, just barely tipped in the air, and then the tight end is met by two more linebackers in the end zone. Ball hits the ground, game's over. So, there's obviously things to critique about how the Hens played, maybe some coaching decisions throughout, but you can't critique the 20-13 victory. The passing game kind of turned on in the second half, a bit more than it was in the first half. You like the second half adjustments from the offense to get Nick kind of throwing the ball a bit better. But overall, it's a bowl win in year one. What is there to complain about? We came home with hardware, and we are also keeping like the majority of our guys this offseason, which is also a huge deal. I'm sure we're going to get into the whole like retainment versus recruitment. And I'll stop talking because now I'm going off. So I'm gonna let Bryce redirect the conversation.
But I have to say, Brody, my next line and a line I want to get to like 3 rows down, you're already checking every box. So there's no surprises moving forward, which I love. That means we're at the end of the season, which means we're already synced at that point. You already hit on the Nate Evans interception. What I love about a lot of the people that cover the sport, and it's great, they cover a lot of the numbers, strictly the numbers in the box score. It's appreciated, but it never tells the story. What I appreciate what we do at Frozen Field Goal, especially when we hit every segment that we do in our weekly shows during football season, is we kind of cover more of the macro level, which is like the momentum swings when we realize, okay, like it's not going Delaware's way because of this moment or this play in the game, or this is Delaware's chance to pounce on it. And we covered that throughout the season. The Louisiana Tech game we covered when the momentum really swung, and we talked with the Western Kentucky game when it seemed like Delaware had it, but then it kind of swung in that third quarter. So I think here's what I appreciate what we do. So I want to I'll talk about the momentum swings, and if I'm forgetting something, Brody already mentioned a couple of them. Fill me in here. I'm thinking about the beginning. Louisiana had no issues moving downfield, but only finished with 3 points at 3 drives, thanks to a missed field goal, which of course causes on a third down stop by the defense, but also a Nate Evans interception in the end zone on what, in my opinion, what it was 4th and 1 on that play, which I was expecting a full run up the middle, maybe a QB sneak. They had a fullback in the maybe it was an H-back tight end, but I was fully expecting a run there. Maybe Delaware did too, but Nate made the play on that from an underthrown ball, was fully over that. So on one hand, you're thinking the Hens would be happy with the halftime lead from those 3 drives and the 3 points. But then it almost felt like we could be winning by more at that point. Because the offense, besides that Joe Silva run, was kind of stagnant in that first half. The passing offense was close to converting on a couple of big plays. I'm thinking of that even that first drive of the game on that second down. That Kyrie Duplessis play was inches away from happening down that left sideline. And also that muffed punt that only ended in a 3 and out. I guess I would say a 4 and out, 4th down failed conversion after that. And then the second half started with a 10 runs. So then you're thinking, okay, the Delaware probably should be where they should in this game at this point, 20-3, based off what happened in the first 30 minutes. But Louisiana worked their way back in. And Brody mentioned that blocked kick, I think, is what set up Louisiana to get in great offensive field position. Maybe the first time they've had plus field position that entire game to maybe get the momentum moving forward for the remainder of the game. Momentum swings. Are there any I'm missing from that kind of large summary of that from the entirety of the game?
So I just want to add that we listened to the broadcast on the drive home, maybe twice. I think at least once, but we might have even listened twice to the game. It was a long drive, and after the 3 drives for 3 points that Louisiana got, and then the Joe Silver touchdown, it felt like in spirit, Delaware was winning 28-0. That's how the energy was, at least in the stadium. It's they're getting these yards, but they're not cashing it in. We got some great turnovers. We I guess forced a missed kick. I guess however much you can will that into existence. But the Hens did what they had to do on defense, and in that way, it's so different than what other games that we've had this year, to where it feels like Delaware is winning by 3 possessions, and they weren't. But that's just what the energy was. And we were listening to the broadcast, and they were the people on the broadcast who were well, it really feels like Louisiana should be winning by 3 possessions, and that just was not how the air was in the stadium. That's, I think, what I'm kind of most keyed into, because all 3 of us were there. We all experienced it. The energy was it was bumping on the Delaware side. We were all in the section near the 50-yard line where we could see Louisiana fans in the next section. After every big play, we were getting up and screaming and and then we look over and they were just staring at us, thinking that we're probably so annoying and arrogant, which granted, we've been told that before, but there just was not energy on that side of the stadium until the 4th quarter. Granted, they deserved to have that energy at that point in the game. There was a swing in momentum, but that's how it felt to me, and I'm surprised that it wasn't I guess validated by the broadcast, who were very Louisiana's camp in terms of they should be winning this game by a lot more, or by any amount, period. Um, and I was just kind of surprised by that because the momentum for me felt very Delaware forward throughout the game.
I have to ask also really quickly. That reminded me when we were on the other side of the field. I was like, "Did we get the wrong tickets? We're not behind the Delaware bench." I had no clue it was going to be like parted by the 50 like that, which I can understand why. Like looking in, like I mean, in the moment, I was like, okay. I know where the camera on ESPN is pointed. Obviously, the most populated sideline makes sense, but how'd you guys feel about that? Like, I really appreciate being behind the Delaware bench. Like, the players feed off the fans, and it felt like we were like parted by a lot, especially on big moments. Like, I'm thinking that Nate Evans interception happened on the Delaware sideline of the end zone. I imagine like the Delaware fan base, if they were on that side of the field, like it would have been rocking. And I felt like we were kind of like disconnected from that first. Like of course we had each other in the fans in the crowd, but sometimes the sidelines and the crowd feed off each other. How did you guys feel about being like kind of like on the Louisiana sideline for that?
I thought that if we were playing Old Dominion in the Military Bowl, it would have been a whole different thing. It's a situation where both fan bases can drive to the bowl game. There's going to be big attendance. But because we were in Louisiana, and I think they knew that like not a lot of people were going to come to the game, period. I loved how they had it set up. I felt the energy was great. Obviously, you would like to be behind the Delaware bench, but there's just as much value in being behind the Louisiana bench if you're Delaware fans. You know what I mean? I actually liked it a lot. I thought it was nice that they had, instead of spreading us out like like 8,000, 9,000 Delaware fans that were there. I mean, like maybe if that, instead of spreading us all around this like pretty like medium to large size G5 stadium, they had us all condensed into two sections, and that made the energy feel like way bigger than it would have been if we were all spread out over the stadium. And the same is true with Louisiana fans. I thought that having us kind of, how I describe, Delaware band, Delaware, Louisiana, Louisiana band. I thought it was great for the energy. It made it feel very tight. It also gave me, and this is giving it way too much credit, but like a mini Rose Bowl, where you can see the color split, like in the hands, like where the two fan bases are, and you don't get that if there's one sideline of like 9,000 people and one sideline of like 4 or 5 or 6,000 people, and the end zones are empty. It just isn't the same. You can't look over at the opposing side's fans while you're cheering. And to me, that was a huge part of the game, was looking over at them and seeing their reactions to big Delaware plays, because I mean that again contributes to the energy. I personally liked it. I get like why they did it. And I think that given the cards that this 68 Ventures Bowl was dealt, I think they did it in, I think, the appropriate way. Of course, it would have been nice to be behind the Delaware bench, but there were definitely some people heckling the Louisiana players as well, so I think it goes both ways.
Yeah, probably no big deal, Burger, in the end. A couple footnotes about it, though, in terms of the crowd, like where we were set up. My recollection is I don't think the Delaware band was positioned to face us in pregame. Like, I'm pretty sure they were facing the press box side across away from us, which it's not a criticism of the UDMB, more so just like, why was that the alignment when like both the Delaware designated fan section is on the sideline that the band is having its back turned to? Like, that doesn't, I don't think I'm misremembering that. I don't think I'm misremembing that.
Mm-mm.
I don't want to get that,
right.
like,
Because
wow, that'd be a horrible thing to be complaining about and then just be inaccurate on, but I don't think I'm misremembering.
No, they had the halftime show on ESPN Plus, but they only had a Louisiana's band on ESPN Plus for the halftime. You could watch the halftime show, but it only had Louisiana's band, and they had the camera there so they could see.
I was just thinking
band,
of pregame. Like, quite honestly, I wasn't even thinking of halftime. I was more so just thinking of pregame. Not that, I mean, halftime also counts and is important. But anyhow, and then I'm not sure there were that many crowd shots on ESPN to begin with. So it's like you positioned the fan bases for these possible crowd shots, but then didn't even bother taking them, at least from above. Like, it seems like a lot of times it's just like the field level camera turns around and gets the front row of folks, which is great, showing fans, Delaware
Mm-hmm.
fans especially, like that's anyway. So the whole thing kind of feels like a nothing
Hey, I
burger.
saw my grandparents on TV. They
Did
were
you see
there,
him?
and we saw
Did you
them.
see him?
Yeah, we saw them in a bunch of. If I was sitting next to them instead of
Yeah.
next to you and Abby, I would have been on TV.
Yeah. So I mean, in the end, the one thing that actually is not completely a nothing burger is the ability of Delaware fans to be right behind that Louisiana sideline, and the noise when Delaware is on defense. We'll take that. We'll take that. Like you may as well have it be right on top of the Louisiana sideline, and so that's all well and good, really. Like and more so about rather than where anybody was seated, just the Delaware turnout, Delaware's investment, and making sure that the UDMB and Spirit squads were there. I mean, that's all counts for a ton. So hats off to everybody making sure that that got worked out, and that's big. And Bryce, turning us back to what you initially prompted, or one other question you had, a momentum swing or a swing in the game. I have to add, I don't know if you, I guess you didn't explicitly mention it. It's a Louisiana mishandling a snap, and Delaware ends up making a stand when Louisiana was on offense, approaching in the neighborhood of midfield. And then you could correct me on the timing of when that came in the game, but that was definitely a surge in the game for Delaware.
That's right.
It was around the I guess I'd say between like the 2 and 4 minute remaining like mark, because that was the stop, and Delaware had the ball back at 20-6, and you're thinking all it would take, I think at that point, was 2 first downs and the game's over. And they weren't able to get 2. So which what caused a fantastic Brandon Locke punt and a great down to force them at that point to go 90 to 95 yards downfield to tie it. But yeah, like I mean, at that moment you're thinking like you're negative territory at that point, and yeah, it was the mishandled snap. That was a good call on that. Yeah, and I'm glad we circled back on that. A swing just to keep the Blue Hens in momentum there to at least control the lead that they did have at that point, minimal time. And I'm glad you called out earlier in the game, thinking in that final drive. If Louisiana gets a touchdown, they're going for 2. There was no way that game was going to overtime. And I'm so happy it didn't have to come down to a conversion attempt, where I was more than happy to end the game on the 20-13 stop versus like a 20-19 stop, where like that was actually the game.
Well,
so,
if I could jump back into, I'm thinking, again, if it had been a 2-point conversion, had it come to that, I just would have been thinking, man, another short yardage scenario. And it would have reminded me of the interception that Delaware is able to get in the end zone in short yardage defense with Nate Evans. I'm thinking in that moment earlier in the game with the interception Delaware got, how many times this season have we seen teams run for, I mean, understandably so. I mean, you're in a tough spot as a defense, so I'm not hammering Delaware's defense. But I'm thinking, how many times have we seen teams score, I feel like on a 4th down or in short yardage right near the goal line? Maybe I'm like overstating it in my own recollection of the season, but I'm thinking of the Jacksonville State game maybe. And of course, Jacksonville State.
Jack State, I was thinking of.
We know Jack State can run the ball. Like, okay, like we're accounting for that. But I'm thinking it was such a boon for Delaware that Louisiana wound up throwing and then winds up throwing the pick to Evans there, because if it's a run play, that just feels like it's playing back memories of teams. Delaware does well to initially stand, make at least force a 3rd and goal, force a 4th and goal near the goal line. But then maybe it's one last running play that gets a team in. I know that would have been the case in the Jack State game, and then maybe Liberty as well. But anyway, I guess I'm a little fuzzy on that. It just feels like a vibe that I was carrying in to situations like that in the bowl.
Yeah, there's moments where, like, I would say, like, outside of Newark, there was domination on the ground for the Hens. And, like, I was, like, fully prepared for it in this, because I think we could say there wasn't a Cam Cook we were facing against the Raging Cajuns. But, like, Xylon Perry and Bill Davis, and then even adding in Lunch Winfield if he was healthy, running the ball, like, moving in, we talked about the run defense, like, and I'm thinking about the run defense, like, throughout the season, like, that was something we always were keying into. But between the UTEP game and that game, like, the run defense did its job, like, for the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, of course, like, I'm thinking the UTEP game, of course, we don't want to give up 31 points, but, like, 6 turnovers, one of them being for 6. And bend don't break, 13 points against Louisiana. Like, the defense wasn't perfect in either game, but, like, if we get that moving forward in 2026, like, that's momentum. Like, that's some solid momentum there. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Like, but both sides just have to be connected. All 3 sides, special teams, offense, defense. If defense can create a turnover, offense can take care of it. If the offense, gives a turnover away, but the defense can clean it up, solve for minimal points. I think we saw that towards the end of the year. Kind of like connections in between the sides of the ball. The MVP in this game, Joe Silver, 116 yards and a touchdown with that 61-yard run that Brody talked about. The offensive player of the game, Nick Minicucci, 19 for 30 for 176 yards and a touchdown. Defensive player of the game, Nate Evans, mentioned above, that pick in the end zone as well as 5 tackles and a pass breakup. Nate Reed, special teams player of the game. Of course, the block kick, but 2 field goals, 1 for 33, 1 for 27, which those 6 points are crucial because if you don't get either of them, then Louisiana can kick a field goal to end the game there. So, and also 5 for 5 on touchbacks on either kickoffs or after scores. What a year for Nate. Any other hens worthy of shout-outs? Sean Wilson, of course, on the big touchdown. Noah Matthews on the final 2 possessions. Birdie talked about that tip pass, but to get to that point, Noah Matthews got to the quarterback really quickly on that play on that left edge. We talked about, I guess the broadcast talked about how many offensive tackles Louisiana was missing heading into that game. But Matthews on that play got to the quarterback quick. The play before got to lunch on the quarterback run outside of the pocket, forcing a quarterback hurry on the final play of the game. Any players I'm missing that are worthy of shout-outs outside the ones that, of course, 68 Ventures Bowl shouted out, and of course, I just gave Wilson and Matthews a quick shout-out. So, unfortunately, if I stole them from your minds, sorry about that. Any other players that had a moment that you're like, okay, this needs a shout-out?
I'd say Dylan Trainer for having the pads on at all. It was great to see him playing. I'd say the whole offensive line for basically doing their job for the entire game. I didn't see Nick get pressured all that much. Maybe there were a few times where he got pressured and maybe got a sack. I think maybe they got one sack on the evening. But besides that, I think the offensive line did a great job. Not a lot of offensive penalties on us either, especially on the offensive line. So I want to shout them out for keeping composed. And what wasn't a crazy loud Louisiana defensive cheering situations necessarily. They weren't really juiced up for the majority of the game, but it's still, tensions are high. You don't want to get a false start or any other pre-snap penalties throughout. So the offensive line is a big one. And then, of course, like I said, Dylan Trainer for putting the pads on for one last game with Delaware. Very happy that after the injury that we saw that looked like it would have been season-ending, he was like, nope, I'm going to put on the pads anyway. I don't know, if my leg gets shredded up today, then it was the last game, and I'm glad that I did it. My words, not his, obviously. But those are my 2.
Yeah, offensive line, it's good that you said that for sure. And Bryce, that includes Anwar O'Neal, right? We're looking at Delaware player who since then is off to Louisville, but I'm not mistaken in my recollection. He played, he's out there in the bowl. And it's like, there would have been some people who are advising out, like, you've done enough to, you've had the personal resume individually to have an opportunity at the power conference level and all of this, that. It's like no, quote, individual need to put the risk of getting some kind of injury and then hurting your own, prospects forward into a next program, next school. But like, I'm not remembering him being absent. Like, I'm pretty sure it was like the full complement of starters, at least one of these starting sets we've seen.
100% of offensive snaps. Yep, Amar was out there for all of them.
Yeah.
Which is, the difference between left tackles. You're thinking the Louisiana left tackle sat out the game for the portal, and I think I would say the term culture is very loose, but I would say Delaware's culture, this game meant a lot to them. And I think you saw that for the players, like a Dylan, like Brody mentioned, like an Amar that Dan mentioned, plenty of players that it was their last game or maybe first postseason game as a Blue Hen. It meant a lot to everybody part of the program. You could see that from the celebration of the final whistle and maybe even the celebrations in between. I'm looking at the Nate Evans interception, and I was looking back. I think maybe it was a third full, maybe a fourth full watch for me if you're counting being in the stadium for that. But it meant a lot for that program. So that's a good shout out, and that And sorry if I meant to cut. Dan, did you have anything else before I continue us?
My only just other overarching thought, just the way the team evidently, just by the way it played. I mean, having a way to grind out a win and feel the pressure of this is the one shot you get to cap the season in the way that Delaware dreamed, and Delaware just been hoping for a chance to be destined to bowl, as the slogan goes, right? And all the sweating we did on the night of the Iron Bowl and on all this and that, and then thankfully not having to worry about the later team opt-outs or team unavailabilities based on coaching changes. Like, and ultimately Delaware able to just get into the bowl, but then make the most of it, not having the whole week of events, or maybe not a full true week, but multiple days of events leading up to the 68 Ventures Bowl, and then having the game actually occur on a Wednesday night. You know, that's not something Delaware had been used to at the FBS level. First time doing it, like first time at a neutral site for the program with multiple days leading up since that FCS national title of the 2010 season. So I'm just thinking the way Delaware's players handled arriving at that moment and not being just necessarily thrown off by all the special events and the special activities that were fun and certainly got to get involved in the community in Mobile too, like the parades, both the days before the game and then the night of the game, having the arrival parade, like all of the unique things that made it a bowl atmosphere and made it a special Southeastern bowl setting. Like, it's not like Delaware got caught up in it necessarily, or, you know, wound up being a little bit sleepy by the time you do all those fun things and it's time to play a game in front of not that many people in an unfamiliar place. Like, just all those things that might seem fluffy or might seem like I'm overstating them, but I think they just kind of matter in a not tangible way in terms of just going about Delaware's business, especially to start the second half. To start the second half the way Delaware did, credit Delaware's coaching staff and just team leadership, because starting the second half that way was major. You see Delaware really make it click through the air. That's, I think, when you really feel the full weight come off of some fans' shoulders, where it's like, okay, this is the Delaware that we know Delaware can be. When it's really clicking is that identity of the team a little bit, getting it completed through the air to Duplessis and company.
And I'll add, if you haven't rewatched the game recently, there's a new YouTube account called Blue Hen Replay who added the Scott Klatskin call of the game off of WDSD, like added over the ESPN broadcast. If you'd like to listen to the game with Scott calling it like it was a home game, we'll link that in the description, because it's a good watch. It is a good watch to see Scott calling the game, like maybe how it should have been called originally. The amount of energy, especially the insight that he has to the Delaware roster, which was somewhat lacking on the ESPN cast. We'll put that in the description. It's been a while since the game. Maybe you want to rewatch it, especially with a fresh perspective. So we'll link that below.
Before we talk about the 2026 feathers and field goals, because I kind of want to talk about what we're going to do. Let's talk about 2026 Delaware football. There's a lot to talk about at the G6 level. Once you have a strong player with the eligibility remaining, I'd say, like, it's kind of a normal given that they're going to be gone. Like, and you can't blame them. And I shout out Amar O'Neal because Daniel talked about him earlier. Played the bowl game, a successful 3-year career, especially 2 starting 2 all-conference level seasons at the CAA and CUSA level. Now going to the ACC, I can't blame him for taking that opportunity whatsoever. But thinking about the retention level, and we talked about the retention versus recruitment level for Delaware, that's not the case for Delaware in terms of like losing all of their big pieces with eligibility remaining. I'll go through the list really quickly, and then I'll ask you guys what you think. I think it's going to be positive of it. Quarterback Nick Minicucci, quarterback Braden Streeter, running back Joe Silver, running back Byron Ellison Jr., wide receiver Sean Wilson, tight ends Elijah Sessoms and Scott Moore, offensive linemen Stephen Nabosky, Anthony Kachase, Noah Roshak, defensive line Dominic Brogna, Noah Matthews, Trey Scott, Brandon Borum, linebackers Gavin Mull, Blake Matthews, defensive backs, I will start safety, KT Say, cornerbacks, Jamarian Kolak-Bodie. But that doesn't even include returners Keyshawn Cox Jr., Donovan Lewis, Caden Singleton, and Khalil Ali, which all were big pieces as well. They didn't have the official return announcements, but for all we know, as of the time of recording, are not portal entries. That's a lot of bodies.
And that's only the ones that we have like little graphics for that the school posted. There's gonna be more who maybe didn't have the snaps this year to warrant having like an I'm back moment. a Justin Timberlake or Britney Spears "I'm Back" moment on the Twitter account. But it's very exciting.
Yeah, so cheers to the coaching and support staff for this. The word I said it earlier. The word culture is so overused, and like, what's the definition of culture? Like, you hear people say they don't have a good culture or they have a good culture. This is the definition of a good culture. Like, I think, like, you see the culture set by head coach Ryan Carty, interim AD. Like, please remove the interim tag already. AD Jordan Skolnick and general manager Pat Callaway. I've been asking individually, but I want to leave this. Open the floor for either of you. Like, how big is retention at the G6 level?
Well, I want to add that culture is an amorphous definition, but my personal definition of culture is, of course, it's a noun, but it's what Delaware has more of than James Madison currently. And that's my definition of culture, is that you look at James Madison and what they're going through. I mean, obviously, granted, different contexts given the head start that they've had at the FBS level. But overall, I mean, I'd rather be where we are than where they are right now. And I don't think that's even up for debate either. So that's what my definition of culture is. Whatever it is to you, we have more of it than they do in Harrisonburg. So just putting that out there.
Coaching continuity helps. Coaching continuity helps. I'll be the good cop, know. But yeah, my reaction, okay, like on the field reactions are overwhelmingly positive. Like, it's hard to. There were some stars for Delaware that I know we were all discussing in our group chat just internally, right? Like, we were optimistic about, but to see the confirmation and to see the way Delaware's going about sharing the confirmation, it reassures the fan base. And then getting back in the abstract for me, which I guess I'm just so prone to, let's get philosophical, right? Like, I do think it does give Delaware fans at large just something to believe in. Like, in terms of, like, something to believe in about the big picture of college football here. Like, you just, like, can scroll and it's, like, kind of, there's a lot of doom and gloom. I get that, and it's still kind of, like, a very new environment that people are getting used to, like, following along with and kind of getting their head wrapped around. But without getting too deep in the weeds of that, I think it's just a good place for Delaware to be, where you're talking about kind of this kindling of a new segment of the fan base that's kind of maybe just coming aboard in the FBS era, right? Like, maybe they're just kind of more engaged or feel more of a pull because they saw FBS year one success. And so, like, now those folks are getting reason to believe and reason to think, okay, like, there's something that's like long-term building here that I can invest in long-term too. Like, maybe a lot of new people considering season tickets at that level possibly, or being more likely to renew because of seeing those familiar names who are committed to Delaware, and Delaware is committed to them. Like, I'm not going to like discuss it as if there's not involvement of Delaware being committed to these guys too, right? Like, seeing UD be able to responsibly reward talent and to be fair to its own talent, that's important. So in the end, I think those are kind of my top reactions, just in terms of assessing everybody as a group who's a bulk of returners. Like, the fact that it's a group of returners is pretty big. It's not as if Delaware was salvaging an entire portal cycle by only being able to retain like 1-2 players. Like, you're talking about kind of players who are on the same page. And also, okay, like, this should be said too, like, good for these guys. And like, I feel like I have some license to say this, like, transferring once in my non-varsity athlete career, but like, good for these guys. Like, heck, being able to stay at Delaware, it's got to help academically too, because we obviously want to see everybody keep making progress. College is tough as it is, right? Like, it's hard to get a degree. It's a push, right? So it's great news all around, and good for the guys in school. Just that continuity of remaining at the institution and being able to make that much more progress on the student end.
And also to anyone who's looking to transfer in, hey, come get a great degree at Delaware. Especially if you know that that you might not make it at the pro level. There's nothing wrong with coming to Delaware, getting a great degree, and putting some good plays on the field while you're here. You know?
Like, in the end too, so like,
keep that in mind.
Is Delaware not selling like a fun brand of ball? Like, we're biased, I guess. What did you expect us to say? Oh, it's like lame to play at Delaware. Like, I don't think you're going to hear that from us anytime soon. But you're looking at Bryce, and I'll tee you up to say this. I mean, you're the recruiting guru, right? Like, I'm looking at things where it's like, we're not losing sleep over, wide receiver recruiting. It's just a fun place to be in terms of the ball being thrown around, but it's not like it's irresponsibly thrown around. You have quarterback development that's been shown too. And then the defensive style, you see how many defenders, like KT say, remaining with Coach Rojas, being on the same page with Coach Rojas, finishing the year the way Delaware's defense is able to finish. So there's a lot of fun involved with that. And the momentum involved with being still new to the FBS and having a first shot at a CUSA title in terms of being eligible for that title game in the league in 2026. Like, that's fun would be the word, right? Like, and I guess it helps that the bowl win occurred, so we can just toss around fun and it's all rainbows and things like that right now. But I think that's my vibe, Bryce, for it.
Well, can I talk about some incoming pieces coming in that we know so far?
Yeah, no, that's your wheelhouse.
I don't have any receivers to talk about yet. I have a feeling that some of them are coming, though. Like, we have Sean Wilson, and, like, Sean Wilson is the best portal receiver we could have gotten at the school. Like, I always see things, like, I'm seeing other schools, maybe a school near us in the conference, that I keep seeing big portal gets from them, but, like, they weren't able to retain any of their talent. Maybe it was a good thing because they went 4-8 in the conference, but, like, I think my biggest comparison is I would rather have Sean Wilson and 1 to 2 receiver like portal gets versus no Sean Wilson and 2 to 3 receiver targets. So like Sean Wilson's the best receiver we could get out of the portal, and like he didn't.
And not to mention that Delaware has seen pretty valuable returns, whether they get transferred in recruits or transferred in wide receivers from D3 or the Power 5 level. Between Hill Lutz and Jake, all just in the very recent
memory.
And
DePlacy too. DePlacy last year.
Yeah, DePlacy as well from Coastal Carolina.
His story has got to be one of the best Delaware like single year stories, and just like as a person and like just getting to know him, like just the student.
And he might be a recruiter for another receiver we're targeting. We'll see on that. I can't talk about that right now, but we know a 5 officially. The defense is adding UAB defensive lineman James Steele. That was one of the top Delaware recruits in the high school 2025 class. You know, went away from Delaware, tried it out, and now coming back home to Newark. I expect him to have immediate impact on the trench mob. 6'4", 280 pounds. The defensive line lost Ethan Saunders, Jack Hall, Keyshawn Hunter, a lot. I would expect Steele to make an immediate impact here in Newark. A Long Island safety Jalen Bell, who signed as a linebacker, which if it sounds familiar to you, a safety now signed as a linebacker. You're thinking of maybe a Ty Davis, you're thinking of an Anthony Crenshaw, you're maybe thinking of a Noah Plack, like all those guys that eventually transition into the bandit role on the defense. And I think that's where Bell is going to be behind or alongside Blake Matthews, who played there all of 2025 and will be there in 2026. As well as Michigan State safety George Mullins signed with Delaware, the 6'3" true freshman. Please follow our coverage on high school recruiting. If a lot of these recruits, you know, if they're getting P4 offers, it's all about their relationship you set sometimes. Maybe it's not realistic to get them out of high school, but Mullins was a guy that the staff targeted out of high school. And even with the DB coaching changes, which I think we'll touch on, both the corners and safety coaches leaving, the relationship that Mullins created with the Delaware coaching staff out of high school was enough to land him after entering the portal after Michigan State, which was one of their first signings out of the portal. So that shows you. And I expect him to fight immediately for snaps in that field safety role that Myson Pollard played and Hassan Manning Jr. played in 2025 on that far side, kind of that nickel corner long safety role. Delaware also snagged North Dakota State starting quarterback. This has been a fun one. This is probably my most excited one. Started and played over 500 snaps for the Bison in 2025. And Jaquise Alexander, the Tampa native, which Delaware's been attacking the Tampa area really strong recently. We see EJ Arshield Jr. As well. Super exciting. The DB spot so far has been what I've wanted to see as a first hit. And then
the way that you know that Alexander is a good get is if you look under the announcement tweets, you'll just see a bunch of mad North Dakota State fans who are calling it a downgrade move and this and that. That's how you know it's a good. That's how you know it's a good get, is when you look online and you see not like well wishes from their old school, but rather them getting mad at the move. That's how you know it's good. So shout out this coaching staff and this recruitment staff on getting him over.
On offense, only one but definitely not the last ad so far. It was Division II offensive lineman Mustafa Fika, who was a two-time All-Great Midwest Athletic Conference selectee. He was first team in 2024, second team in 2025. He played left tackle for Kiffin University in that GMAC conference. We'll see how he is. We know Coach Rogers just says we just want the best 5 offensive linemen out there, whether that's tackle, guard. I think we know our center Dembo is already going to be there, so maybe he'll be inside and guard, kind of like how Fenton went from right tackle to left guard this past year. Maybe we'll see him at guard. That's kind of where I'm leaning, but he could be at tackle too. So we don't see them in practice, so I'll leave that open. But great ad.
Yeah, how many years of eligibility does he have? Do you know?
He has one left, and he was actually teammates with Joaquim Roman at Notre Dame College before they shut down, and then he went to Tiffin and played 2 years there. So he has 1 year left, and I think he will be kind of like the big bridge gap in between a lot of strong offensive linemen that the high school class assigned recently. There's five true freshmen coming into the program this next year. Multiple of them, Christian Alvarez, Jaden Edwards. Jaden Edwards is according to 24/7, Jaden Edwards is the #1 recruit that Delaware assigned in history. And then Christian Alvarez is also in the top 5 to 10. So like kind of like a bridge gap in between some of these young guys, starting to build up. Because offensive line is one of those positions Ryan Carty's mentioned. We recruit offensive linemen when we think we'll need them. And it takes maybe a year or two for those guys to be developed. So I think FICA will be a big part moving forward. Outside of those 5, without a doubt, saying more are coming. Not too many compared to a lot of the CUSA teams that have a lot of spots to fill. I'm doing a study. I'm still working on it because the portal date closes on the 16th. Once you enter, you can sign at any time. But after the 16th, if there's not a coaching change, you have to stay where you're at. After the 16th, I'll have a study out to show all conference and starters for each school on the retention level. I think without a doubt, I can tell you Delaware is going to be 1. From my early study, I think Delaware is going to be 1. So the portal might not be like as exciting. Portal's still going to have great pieces that are going to affect the team in 2026. But based on where it's trending, what we've got it so far, what do you guys think need to be the targets in the second phase of the portal? Because they're still going to target some. Maybe I have a hunch on what they're going to do, but based off the seniors we lost, or maybe some of the pieces that maybe are looking for more opportunity in the second or third teams looking for their next spots, like where do you think that we need to maybe snag some more pieces in the portal?
Well, we're obviously looking at kicker. I think we have a Salisbury kicker who took a visit recently. I would love that, staying home on Delmarva, Delaware State and Salisbury are the only 3 football programs on the entire Delmarva Peninsula. You'd like to see Wilmington University be the only D2, maybe at some point.
I'm not sure I would, because we're still in basketball season. I'm not sure I want to run into Wilmu, okay? Like, respect.
Yeah. Well, hey, DSU's looking better now, too. And Salisbury has always been a D3 power. So, the more good teams on the peninsula we can get, it's good for the culture. Mm-hmm. It's good for the culture. Even though I wouldn't want to play them, given what basketball has been like. But anyways, we're definitely looking at kicker. You can never have too many offensive linemen on the roster as well. I was looking at O-line. I would like to see us get one dedicated fullback. I would like that to be on the list just for selfish reasons. Right now I have Joaquin Roman as my fullback in college football 26.
You know how big he is?
He's huge. He's huge, but he gets downhill in that game. I'm telling you, if you put him in the power I, yeah.
That does lead. Okay, so this is Coach Carty's offense. Your offense is different than Coach Carty's offense with the fullback, but Connor Widoff, that type of mold of player, like it would still be like a successor.
Well, he's looking for, right? Well, he's the starter. He's the starter in CFB at the fullback position. You have Widoff and Scott as well as the two fullbacks in the power I formation.
I don't want to miss Jackson Whitaker too as like a blocking type
Oh,
Like,
Jackson Whitaker. He's actually second string. He's second string. I might be getting confused when some people graduate.
Bryce,
after
you
you
check
finish
us
1 year
on
or
this.
whatever.
Whitaker is a young.
Yeah,
This
us.
is for NCAA 26, correct?
Yeah,
Like,
this is
what we're talking
NCAA
about.
26.
Okay.
Although I get it confused because you get a couple of years in, your whole roster changes.
Oh, this is talking about the video game, by the way. We're getting.
Yeah. We're
so much time
we're
on.
getting too ahead of ourselves. But I would like to see one big boy come in for maybe the one snap a game, if that, maybe the half snap a game we actually take from under center. I would like to see some different packages on fourth and inches that don't include pistol or shotgun. Please, for just my heart, I get so anxious when I see us lining up 6 yards behind the line of scrimmage to hand it off and get 6 inches on the run. That's all. Kicker. Place kicker, obviously, and I just want a big meaty guy to sit in the backfield for fullback as well.
Dan, do you have any thoughts on because before I give anything, I'll let you.
Well, I'm gonna
What do
cheat.
you
I'm
think?
gonna cheat. My what I'm looking forward to most, getting back to coaching staff, it's quarterback coach. It is quarterback coach. I mean, thinking about. Heck, okay, I don't want to disrespect or diss Coach
Wait,
Mack.
okay, let me stop you really quick. Let me stop you really quick.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, fill in, because I don't think we got there, fill in what the coaching changes have happened so far.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to mention, it should be called the Coach Mack coaching tree now to New Hampshire, but it's a bit of a Coach Carty tree now. Sean Goldrich, Delaware quarterbacks coach, pass game coordinator, recruiting coordinator, up to UNH to be the head coach for the Wildcats after Ricky Santos gets to Penn. So think about that. I mean, Coach Santos coming down our direction in Philly, and then UNH is looking for its next solution at head coach. And UNH hasn't had to make a ton of hires at head coach in our lifetime. And so now what a chance for Coach Goldie. I mean, that is so awesome. I know, we were fired up. I mean, from a sense of for the person, for the coach, the success at Delaware with quarterback development that I said earlier. I mean, it's not just Coach Carty. I mean, Sean Goldrich, the value there in being in sync with knowing exactly what Coach Carty's looking for. I thought that peace of mind was just so big, just as a follower and fan. And then, it seems like just the feedback from Delaware players that we can glean, or that's been on Twitter or the comments. Again, that's basically what we're looking at from where we sit now. It just the positivity there, it reflects the Coach Goldrich, a very popular name and coach here, and so thanks for what he did here. And now it's so exciting to see, just from at least my perspective. I'm looking at it now, and Bryce, I think you might have said the same thing first on Twitter. It's a chance for somebody to root for in CAA. In CAA football, we can root for New Hampshire and follow along with them because just feeling like we can identify with a young coach like Sean Goldrich, who, I mean, he cut his teeth other places before Delaware too, but feeling like he got to grow even more here at Delaware, and that's a tribute to the decision-making of Coach Carty to entrust Goldie with what he entrusted him with. That's all big time. So anyhow, that's one update. I'm looking forward to quarterback coach, because who could be next? It just was such a set it and forget it position, right? Goldrich was a great answer there, and it's Ryan Carty, he could coach QBs if he had the time to, but of course he's the head coach. We don't expect him to be position coaching. So anyhow, that's a huge question mark. Thinking the bar is pretty high to see who will fit in there at that QB coaching spot. But also, Bryce, you hinted at changes in secondary for Delaware, and the three high life defense that's so big. Art Link, who retires from college coaching here this offseason. Looks like he's going to stay in Delaware if his LinkedIn profile was updated, which is great. Great to see if he's still in the area and in the community. But that's big time too. Art Link had a pretty high level title in Delaware's pecking order.
Assistant head coach of the defense.
Yeah, shout out to Brody, the pecking order. Art Link had a pretty high level of that. And thinking about Art Link's connections just in the DMV and I want to say, and then in Florida too, right? Art Link, Florida ties, Sean Goldrich, Florida ties. So those are major departures, along with Coach Carrico, right, as well, going to Clemson.
Georgia ties.
So thinking about, Delaware's assistant departures in terms of the staff changes, let's think about where they've been. I mean, it hasn't been people are fleeing the staff or anything like that. I mean, think as far back as Sam Daniels. That was an alma mater move, right? Going back to JMU. And then an alma mater move for Coach Wright in the Clemson. If I don't have my wires crossed there, that's right. It would be the alma mater.
You're perfectly right.
Yeah, for Wright to Clemson, and then Goldrich, New Hampshire, more of the same. Andrew Pierce to Temple, going further back. Well, there's Coach Keeler there, right? So all these moves, they made a lot of sense on the part of the assistants. And so when Delaware has had to backfill on the staff and switch things up, I mean, it's been really good situations, it seems like, for those guys heading out. So great for them. But it's like a healthy sign, too. Like, by and large, to have the continuity of Coach Archer and Coach Rojas with Coach Carty, and then it's gone from there. I think about Coach Rogers. He's been so successful here, where you think Coach Rogers would have his chances to maybe have some other opportunities, too. Like, having that nucleus for Delaware staff, and then has been so strong. Even when there are some exits, I'm saying, what I'm trying to get to is, it's not like it's been crazy attrition, or it's been, every which way assistants are having to come and go. Like, it's been very like natural fits and great steps up for guys, which probably again reflects pretty well on the operation.
Yeah, a little bit off topic, but I would love to see of course Zach Marker transferring after this year, because we know that Minakuchi is going to be the guy moving forward. Best of luck to Zach Marker in the transfer portal. Obviously very talented quarterback who we love. Lit it up for us, not this past year, but last year before going 10 touchdowns, no interceptions, before getting injured and missing the end of that season. And Jakari Kelly, of course, as well, leaving. Is there a pathway for both of them to go to New Hampshire with Coach Goldie, light it up one more year in the CAA while Marker has eligibility? I'm not sure what Jakari Kelly's eligibility looks like, but I mean, that would just be a great story for Marker and Kelly to go to New Hampshire and light it up on Flow Sports one more time.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. It would be cool. To fill in on Dan's thing that I was going to say is the DB side. We'll see the exact role. It sounds like Football Scoop is reporting that it's going to be the same role that he had at Penn before this, because Delaware had the CB's coach and the safeties coach before, but it sounds like Penn's DB coach, Marvin Clissador, is going to fill in as the DB's coach at UD. So we'll see. Penn... we'll see. He's from Florida, so maybe that keeps that Florida pipeline. I know some people are worried because I saw Carrico, Georgia, and then of course Goldie and Link were the Florida guys. So I think people were nervous that pipeline was going to close, but I think the pipeline has to refill for the incoming coaches, and we see that with Clissador being from Florida himself. So I wouldn't worry about that pipeline being closed.
Well, and players are good recruiters too, in a different sense.
We've seen that already. Like we saw Mullins and Jawan Corbin went to the same high school together, and that's a guy we brought in last offseason from Ohio Central Community College that came from Florida.
Was it the same as Marker's school though? Iowa? Was it not? Was it?
Yeah, Iowa Central. Yep, yeah, that's like that, and the same with Yelbert, James Yelbert. They all three came from Iowa Central. But Mullins went to the same high school as Jawan, and I can tell you they're still trying to get in that Tampa area, and we saw that from Jaquise Alexander from the Tampa area as well. So sometimes the players are your best recruiters. We'll see how it goes, but I think Clissador is maybe where we're looking at DBs. It's been reported but not officially announced by the school. We'll see that for the official tag moving forward, because we saw Carrico was pass game coordinator. We knew that Goldie was recruiting coordinator. So we'll see how kind of those backfill. I know sometimes those additional tags help assistants in terms of salary. So where is that going to be filled moving forward? So we're going to watch that. We're going to watch everything in the offseason. From the football side, you don't have to worry about Feathers and Field Goals not recruiting, not focusing on football in an episode. Every single episode will have football in some way, shape, or form. But I also want to preview what Feathers and Field Goals content will look like these upcoming months when we're not on a week-to-week basis for football games. This winter, the winter sports have been what we want to see in early conference play, but we're still going to talk about it as we go through the winter. And similarly with basketball, where we had our preview show with the men's and women's, we're going to get our spring sports previews coming in the next few weeks as spring sports come a lot closer, earlier than spring on the calendar. I think UD hosts LAX in less than 3 weeks from now, the last Saturday in January. So it's coming. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to we're going to get some previews on, maybe get every coach, head coach, or captain on. We'll talk about that. Of course, we're going to follow the journey to the 2026 football season. February, official schedules come out for Conference USA. More players are coming. So don't worry. Football will be in every episode moving forward. Behind the scenes, we are already working on improvements for 2026 and beyond. So stay tuned for that as well. I guess I'm going to go do a quick around the horn. Brody, is there anything that I'm missing? Anything that you want to plug before we close out this episode?
Well, as you mentioned, we're covering lacrosse. I want to go down the lacrosse home schedule really quickly. Just for anyone who might be interested in seeing me at a couple of games, I'll be going to a few games this season. Of course, as you mentioned, late January is when the lacrosse season starts. Not exactly beautiful weather yet in Newark, but it's coming. Lehigh is on the 24th, which is just a scrimmage. But then we have Utah. We're hosting Utah. A team that we traveled to and beat last year is now coming to the Tub on the 31st of January. We have 3 straight away games in the city of Philadelphia, Drexel, St. John's, and Penn. Then we host Villanova on the 28th of February, and then we also host Maryland the week after, the first week of March.
Friday Night Lights.
Yeah, Friday Night Lights against Maryland. It's going to be a huge game. I'll be there with some people. I'm bringing a whole squad with me. Then we play away at Richmond. Then 3 straight home games. We have High Point, Binghamton, and Hobart. Of course, High Point and Hobart being in the Atlantic 10 for lacrosse, which is our new lacrosse conference, as well as Richmond and UMass, 2 away games. We host the Bonnies of St. Bonaventure on April 18th, another game I'm going to try to get to, especially if it's nice outside. Then we're going on the road to St. Joe's. We only have 6 away games this year in lacrosse, and 4 of them are in the city of Philadelphia, which is great. It's great for our guys not having to put too many miles out on the road. That's a big thing with the big conference realignment debate. I guess we don't have to worry about lacrosse travel in Conference USA, of course, not having lacrosse, because there are a bunch of Southerners who don't understand the Yankee urge to play lacrosse. Greatest region in the country stretches from I guess where Bryce and I are in Maryland up to Massachusetts, the greatest region in the world. And then the A10 championship in Richmond that we will hope to win in our very first year. It would be great, especially because just from looking at the roster, I haven't watched a lot of A10 lacrosse. The A10, of course, being one of the premier conferences in college basketball in our region. Besides maybe the Big East, there is a lot of great talent to come out of the A10. I'm not sure what A10 lacrosse looks like, so that'd be something I'll be looking into. To maybe give you some perspective going into the season. I'll have to do some research on the A10. Of course, they added us, not quite a lacrosse power, but definitely a regional power in lacrosse, finishing ranked a number of times in the previous few seasons, previous 10 years, ranked pretty often, going toe-to-toe with regional powers like Towson, of course, beating a ranked Utah team last year in Utah. This program is nothing to sneeze at. But tying with Johns Hopkins in hall ball this year. That was a big moment for maybe not publicized because it's just a scrimmage, but it's great to see us kind of standing up to Johns Hopkins a little bit, who's another. Of course, a D3 and everything except for a lacrosse team who can put as much money in lacrosse as they want. And so that's just great to see. Johns Hopkins is a great lacrosse brand. It's good to spar with them early in the season, especially before we even get our freshmen out there. No freshmen, of course, in the hall ball scrimmages. But yeah, that's a brief look at our lacrosse schedule. Of course, Villanova and Maryland, big home games. UMass, a game that I'll be going to on the road with my posse. St. Bonaventure, Hobart, High Point, all conference games at home. And then if you live in Hilly, as a lot of Delaware alum do, Drexel, St. John's, Penn, and St. Joe's are all going to be lacrosse games in Philadelphia. And why should you care about lacrosse? Maybe that's something that I should be answering. Well, if you like football, there's a lot of hard hitting in lacrosse. I have a friend who played lacrosse in college, who's coming to me to the UMass game. It's the fastest game on grass, is what they say, or the fastest game on 2 feet, I think is what they say. If you have never watched lacrosse, I would give it a go. Come out to a game. The atmosphere isn't as good as a football game necessarily, but if you come out and you convince your roommates to come out, maybe we can get to that spot where it's a great atmosphere. But it's like football light is how I'm looking at it. It's pretty high scoring. You can win a game, 18 to 20 or something, or it can be like 10-8 at the end, which is definitely more high scoring than a game like soccer, which I played, for the majority of my life. But it's not maybe well known for being a high scoring back and forth affair most of the time. A lot of games coming down to like 2-0 or something along those lines. Lacrosse is not typically like that. Lacrosse, you can get up to the teens in points and very short possessions going back and forth with each other. So, come out to a lacrosse game, see if you like it. It's not like there's football going on during this time, so come out to the tub and get some concessions and pretend like it's football for an hour or two and see if you like it. And if you don't like it, then whatever, go home. Who cares? But come out to the lacrosse game. There's some good games at home this year.
There's a really solid lacrosse fan base, and I think you're going to see it this year. One thing I have to quickly shout before I pass it off to Dan for any last plugs is that 2022 win in the first round of the NCAA tournament against Georgetown. JP Ward, I think, scored with like 8 seconds remaining to win 10-9 against number 2 Georgetown in the country. So we need those vibes back this year. So I'm excited for men's lac season. I'm excited for the spring sports season. Dan, any last plugs I'm forgetting? I know we have a new Discord channel started.
Yeah, Discord has been fun. Making a Discord account is not as complicated as I actually had one from like years ago, maybe like I'm trying to remember when I got it. Anyway, the point is it's been good. It's been a good channel for just like a lot of gathering of Delaware fans. I wouldn't call it like feathers and field goals fans. Like we don't have like fans like that. Like it's Delaware fans. Okay, in on the group chat in the Discord. And then while we were talking lax, like women's lacrosse as well. Like Bryce, I feel like we're high on what women's lax can do in the ASUN. So like just the fact that it's like 2 different leagues, 2 different groups of schools to get to know on the lacrosse field, like that's cool.
Yeah. All right. Let's end this one here. Let's, cheers. Got my cup of water here. Cheers. Cheers to the Delaware 2025 season. Cheers to 2026 for the Blue Hens. I hope it's a great season ahead. I hope it's a great season for us for feathers and field goals. Super excited to get into what we're going to get into. So cheers to all of you for listening. Please like and subscribe if you haven't. Please join our Discord if you haven't, and stick around with us for the ride as we get into exciting content for the weeks, months, and years to come. So thank you.